Yo, 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 welcome back to the Wrestling Strength Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Myers, and as always, the Wrestling Strength Podcast is brought to you by Max Effort Muscle. Make sure to go to maxeffortmuscle.com for all your supplement needs and get signed up for that I Want Abs contest. We're giving away a Benz, we're giving away a Rolex, 10 grand in crypto. Change your life in more than one ways with the I Want Abs contest. Check it out, maxeffortmuscle.com. All right, so I got a very special guest today. Don't really feel that special because I get to see this guy all the time. I get to talk to him a lot, but I'm really excited to have him on here and kind of get to share some stuff with all you guys. Now, this guy is, I'm going to say, an Ohio wrestling legend. I'm going to say the pride of Mechanicsburg, Ohio. That's right. And also, pound for pound, probably the strongest bench presser in the history of Ohio State wrestling, my man, Kaleb Romero.
What's going on?
What's up, Kaleb?
Not much.
Hey, I'm glad you came out and got some work today. Now we get to sit down and talk a little bit. I got all kinds of stuff that I want to kind of dive into with you and chop it up. Now the cameras were rolling, but before we really started going here, we actually probably spent 10 minutes talking about our favorite TV shows and stuff. So we got some of the small talk out of the way.
Yeah.
We need to probably address Ohio State wrestling first, because I think most people that have tuned into the show, that's what they want to hear about.
For sure.
Now, we're in the thick of the season. I mean, it's before Christmas right now, but by the time they listen to this, we might be early to mid-January. So you are in it feels like your 8th or 10th or 12th year now.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep track. We got red shirt years, we got COVID years, we got all that stuff. Kind of give us a state of, where you're at, eligibility-wise, what's going on with you, what was going on with the move up in weight. Let's just dive into it.
Yeah, so I think, I kind of lost count too. So I think I'm going into my 5th year. So this is my 5th year.
Your 5th year competing or 5th year?
Competing.
Okay.
Yes, so I had graduated in 2017 at Mechanicsburg. I redshirted my first year, and then I've been wrestling for, past 4, right? Dude, there's so many years.
Now, would this be your last year? Or do you get to take a year after this?
So that's the one of the cool things about having the extra COVID year. I do have an extra year if I want to take it, which I most likely will. Obviously, there's some things that I have to factor in just going forward, but for the most part, I'm most likely going to take it. But let's see, what else you ask?
So we're up at It was a really loaded question with a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah.
So you're at 184 this year, and you didn't compete early, but you came back with a bang. So kind of talk about maybe what happened at the beginning of the year, how you're feeling up at weight now at 184.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, after the past year, as a lot of the wrestling fans know and stuff, I get pretty big in the off season. I played football my whole life, so I don't know, my weight naturally. Obviously, I lift a lot harder in the summertime because I'm able to, and then just naturally I get a little bigger because of football. So I got up to about,
when you haven't played football in 10 years, I don't know if you can keep using the because of football thing.
No, I'm telling you, I think for the rest of my life and in the summertime, I'm naturally just gonna get bigger. I don't know, but so I got up to about I'd say 210 this year, right around there, and just lifting with you and Kevin, our strength coach and stuff. I was probably the leanest I've ever been at that weight. Cause
you look good at this 210 versus I've seen you at 210 before where you looked bad at 210.
That's what I was about to say. So during the COVID year when I was probably out here 3 to 4 times a day or a week.
Well, yeah, because during the COVID year, once you guys were shut down, we were able to reopen in June.
Yeah.
I took a lot of you guys on because you had nowhere else to go.
And I was here all the time. And I was even, the crazy thing about it, so that was the heaviest I've been that summer. I think it's just because I was, like I said, I was here all the time. I was just lifting super hard. My diet was kind of trash. I was eating whatever I wanted. But I was also running like over 20 miles a week. So I was getting a lot of cardio in, and I felt really good conditioning wise. But like I said, my diet was horrible. And
you can't outrun a bad diet.
Yeah, exactly. And I was just lifting so much. So I was probably that COVID summer, I was probably around 212, but I had a little chunk on me. So this past summer, I was around 210, but I was pretty lean. I think I still had a little 4-pack going over the over the summer, and then
on Twitter I think someone dubbed it. It might have been Andy Vance dubbed it the summer of swole marrow.
So this past summer I was like holding the weight really well, being that big, and just looking at our lineup. We had Carson coming back, who's obviously a freaking stud, as everyone knows. So he was coming back in, just looking at the lineup. Grundy gets pretty big too during the summer.
So it really just made sense from a lineup standpoint. I mean, I kind of sensed that was what was going to happen. You know, it was the three you would bump up, and I know when it was kind of talked about, I was like, number one, it makes sense from a lineup standpoint. And I didn't really see a scenario where you and Grundy were going to struggle with those higher weights. I mean, Grundy started out as a 74.
Yeah.
I think he originally got recruited as an 84.
Yeah, he wrestled 84 our redshirt year.
Yeah, so I knew he would be fine moving up. I've always thought, like, when you came in and they put you at 65 first, I'm like, this kid's too big for 65.
Yeah,
even at 74, I know it was a hard cut for you. And I figured that you moving up to 84 would be a good thing. You know, you've kept your athleticism. You're strong enough to go with these guys, even if their frame's a little bit bigger. And you've looked, lights out so far.
Yeah, so, going, like, moving off that a little bit. So coming into this year, like kind of like you said, I took that transition up to 84. I was a little concerned at first because, again, like you just mentioned, guys are a little bit bigger. Their frames look a little bit bigger. They might hold the weight a little better than I do, I guess, like making them look a little bigger, or however you want to say it. So I was a little concerned. I was wondering, like, maybe am I strong enough? I don't know. I obviously in the weight room, I know I'm one of the strongest, if not the strongest, at 184, even though I may not be as big or look as big as some of these guys. But I knew that going in my head, but sometimes the wrestling strength is a little different.
Well, because you're dealing with leverage,
Yeah.
And anytime when you talk about leverage, someone's frame is going to come into play. I always thought, even when I think back to when I was wrestling in high school, I hated wrestling like tall, lanky guys. They felt stronger to me than the short, muscly guys.
Yeah.
So I think it is a factor, but I think obviously you have a great base of strength. Mm-hmm. You understand how to wrestle. You're in good position, and there was a saying my coach used to say in boxing, but I think it still applies. He would always say, the bigger guy is the guy who hits harder in the ring. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So kind of with wrestling, it's like the stronger guy is the guy who's in better shape and is in better position. You know what I mean? So if you understand positioning, you can get to your positions faster because you're more explosive. That extra, leverage they have frame-wise, I don't think is going to matter, and it hasn't thus far.
Yeah, for sure. And then at the beginning of the season, like I said, I was a little nervous, but I mean, ultimately, like if I believe in myself, then I mean, I think I could win a national title. Like, I know I'm strong enough. I know I'm good enough to win a national title. So with me, it's kind of all about believing. But then coming into the season, I rolled my ankle literally a day before wrestle off. So,
and let's get it out there. How'd you roll your ankle?
Playing handball.
So there's been so many instances of, you rolled your ankle playing handball. I even think back to, at the Olympic trials in 2012, the week before, Reese is supposed to wrestle in the Olympic trials. He's out and he like slips on an icy floor or something and hurts his shoulder. Like, I hate to be like this, like the concerned parent, but like, hey, when it's an important season, maybe you just go to practice and go to class and do nothing else. Don't be playing handball where you can roll your ankle. There's already enough ways to get hurt when you're wrestling.
I agree with that to an extent. All right. I agree with that to an extent, but wrestling is a grueling sport. I mean, obviously everyone knows that it can be not fun a lot of times.
So you need that release is what you're saying.
Yeah. Like when you go in there and he says, all right, you guys can warm up with handball, you see the juice in the room. Everyone's eyes lit up. Everyone's ready to go, all excited. And it kind of just gets you pumped up, ready to go for practice. So sometimes you need that. But sometimes we play a little hard and injuries.
Right.
That's what Coach Ryan recently, he's like, I'll let you guys play handball, but nobody better get hurt. So I'm permanently banned from handball. So unfortunately, my handball days are over.
Well, all right. So let's talk then about the impact injuries. You had an injury last year. We won't talk about how or anything. I'm not going to bust your balls too much, but you got injured last year. You came back, and I could see it watching you wrestle. You didn't look the same.
Hmm.
You know, it looked like you're out there wrestling on one leg. Now
Yeah.
you're still, you know, some of these matches you lost, you know, how do you name it? Starkachi, some of these guys I'm watching, you're hanging with them, but I'm like, he's not going to beat these guys on one leg.
Yeah.
Healthy, I think you got a shot. You can beat those guys. But, you know, it's a tall task to beat the best guys if you're not 100%. I know no one's ever really 100% in this game, but like, you know, so how do you feel like that maybe kind of affected your mindset going into the postseason, knowing that you're injured, knowing that you couldn't really maybe, you know, shoot as often as you wanted to or whatever?
Yeah. I mean, it affected it a lot, obviously. As you said, you could see it in my performance. But I think that is the key thing. Oh, like you said, everyone is always, or most of the time, not everyone's 100%.
They're at least dinged up a little bit.
Exactly. So I think it's how you manage that mentally, because I know for me and a lot of people, wrestling is about, I would say, 70, 80% mental. Like, if you fully believe in your training, you go out there believing that you're going to win every single match or fight as hard as you can for 7 minutes, then that gives you the best opportunity or puts you in the best situation to win the match. So if I
the flip side of that is if you don't 100% believe in your training, your preparation,
they're most likely going to lose.
Right.
So
especially if it comes down to a close match.
Exactly. And college wrestling is so hard and it's so tight between all the wrestlers that, like I was saying, the person who believes or wants it more are most likely going to come out on top. So that's kind of one of the things with injuries. So when I got injured last year, I didn't. I went out thinking, I'm like, am I gonna hurt my ankle again? Like, am I good enough to wrestle right now? Like, and I have all these things thinking in my head, and that's why I go out there and I don't perform like I should. So I think the key thing with that is how people manage their injuries mentally. So I mean, that's a super important part. So for
kids that are listening, you know, maybe if they're already, you know, we're early, maybe almost getting to the mid part of the season for some of the high school kids. For those kids out there that are maybe dealing with an injury, what do you got for them? What's the knowledge you want to drop on them?
I mean, you just gotta. I mean, obviously to an extent, how severe is the injury? But if you're able to wrestle, it's hard. Trust me, I've been through it. Obviously, I went through it last year. I mean, everyone goes through it all the time. But you just gotta believe. Like, you just gotta believe that you're healthy enough to go, and then you can fight as hard as you can for in high school. What is it? 6 minutes, 7 minutes, however long the match is. You gotta believe in yourself and believe you can fight for that long, and then that's when you're gonna wrestle your best. So,
and you know, probably, you know, during the warm-ups, during the day of or whatever, like at that point, worrying about the injury anymore it's only gonna hurt you, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's only gonna hurt your performance.
And trust me, that's one of the hardest things to do is get that off your mind. But when you can tap into that different mindset and just not worry about the injury and just focus on the wrestling, then, I mean, that's how you're gonna perform best.
All right, so you came in as a 165. You went up to 174 for a few years. Now we're up at 184, and I know it's kind of early to tell, but I mean, you had your first, you know, big tournament win out in Vegas. You're wrestling really good. I have always been a huge proponent of let's move these guys up. Now, sometimes obviously it doesn't make sense, but I think for a guy like you, it does. With my high school guys, I'm always telling these parents, let's put on weight in the off season. Let's move up. Let's not think about, he was a 126 this year, so maybe he'll be 126 or 132 next year. I say, no, let's eat and lift. And hey, if he's a 52 next year, he's 52, you know? How do you feel like, you know, maybe now this year, even though you were swole marrow this summer at 210, you don't have to really worry about making weight as much as you had to before. How do you think that's maybe helped your preparation mentally, not having that on your plate?
Yeah, I think it's helped a lot because, I mean, just think a lot of times when you're cutting all that weight too, you don't get the most out of your practices. So I think that's one of the biggest things. So going up, I don't really have to worry about my weight now because we can lose 8 pounds of practice or so. So I don't have to worry about my weight till like the day before. So I'm getting the most out of all my practices. Like my weight cut's not affecting any of it. So I'm getting the best training I can. And then,
so parents, before he goes on, listen to that right there. Your kid will continue to get better at wrestling during the season because they're going to get the most out of the practice. When you're cutting weight, you're not getting the most out of the wrestling. You can't.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Go on.
And then where was I going with this? So what question you asked?
Yeah, so not having to worry about your weight the week of competition until the day before or whatever.
Yeah, and then I don't know, just for me, if you obviously I love to lift. I love to get strong. So, and how I wrestle is explosiveness and speed and quickness and just power basically. So that kind of fits me well. Obviously, when you cut weight, you lose a lot of that. And as you could see, as I wrestled down at 165, I had barely any explosiveness. I wasn't near as fast as I am now. Like,
it's almost reverse of what you would think. I bet people probably think, oh, well, he's probably faster down at 65 because he's littler. It's like, no, he was slower at 165 than he is at 184.
Yeah. So for me, just like I said, focusing on lifting, knowing that I'm going to be the strongest guy up there, the fastest guy up there, and just believing in all those things. It's just, I don't know, all around, it's just helped my performances so far.
So how do you think, when you first came in, I'm trying to, it's hard for me to kind of keep track of the years.
Yeah.
You've been around so long. You and I have trained together for a long time. I've lifted with you a lot over the years, all the way dating back to your redshirt year. But you come in, you're a top recruit coming in, but you got these older guys on the team that are the leaders still. Colin would have still been there, Pletcher. I can't remember who else would have been there when you first came in. Miles was still there. Now you're in their spot. You're the elder statesman of the team. You're looked upon as a leader. How do you feel like that was an easy transition for you, or do you feel like it was something you kind of had to grow into, being the guy that the younger guys are looking up to?
I kind of had to grow into it because I think I lost it a lot, or like the leadership during how do I want to explain this? So, obviously in high school and like growing up,
You were the man.
Yeah, I was always one of the leaders on the team. So coming into college, I had all these great leaders above me with, like you said, Colin, Miles, who else?
Pletcher,
like all those guys. I had awesome leaders. So I was more of a follower in that sense. So I kind of lost it a little bit during that time, but I was able to learn just how to carry myself and a bunch of things from those guys that I can take now and try to help these younger guys coming up. So
kind of along those same lines, you come out of high school, you were a 4-time state champ here in Ohio. You were, standout football player. And like you said, you were used to being the guy. You came from a small school, so you're like a celebrity in your little town or whatever. Yeah. And I think a lot of kids deal with something similar where, like, all right, you're the man in your town. Now you get to college wrestling and you're getting beat up in the room every day. Maybe you're redshirting or whatever, so you're not really a part of the team. You even see with kids that are like, I've had some of my kids in here. They're like, they go undefeated in 8th grade. Well, then now you got to go to 9th grade and you got to wrestle kids that are already shaven, and it's a whole different ball game. So, what's some advice maybe you can give for kids like that, and maybe give some examples of like, your redshirt year, like how it could be hard not to be discouraged when you go from being like this, unbeatable force of nature in high school to like, hey, I'm just another guy now.
And that's actually a kind of cool topic because I think I should have done a better job of this going forward. And the advice I would give is obviously respect those guys and follow those guys because they are awesome leaders and they're going to lead you to success, or they're going to put you down the right path. But that's at the same time, remember who you were. Like you were a badass, you know what I'm saying? Like
you're there for a reason.
Yeah, you're there for a reason, and understand who you are and how much you trained and worked to get to that point, and why you're at wherever you are. And I think I kind of lost that coming into college. Like I looked up to these guys so much that I think I felt like I was a step below everyone. You know what I'm saying? Because fortunately, I came into an amazing team. I had Colin, Kyle, Miles. It had all those guys. I came in. I think we got second at nationals that year. So I looked up to like all these guys, and they were on a pedestal. But at the same time, like I think if I just believed that I was on their level, then I could have been making the strides that I'm making now. I could have made them back.
You would progress faster.
Yeah, redshirt year. So yeah, going forward, and like I've said earlier, just for me, it's all about believing. So that advice I'd give is understand why you're there and believe that you're good enough to be at the level that those at the level of the guys that you're looking up to.
I've had talks with, some of the younger guys on the team at Ohio State that I work with, kids that have walked on or kids that are redshirting or whatever. And I've told them, I said, look, like you're going to these open tournaments and you're worried about this kid from Tiffin or whatever. I'm like, think about why you're at Ohio State. Think about why the coaches kept you on the team here. You know what I mean? If they didn't think you could beat this kid from, and no disrespect to anyone that wrestled at Tiffin,
sure.
but,
yeah.
If they didn't think you could beat this kid, then don't you think they would have that kid there? Don't you think that kid would rather be in your shoes?
I know. That's thinking back. That's how I was too. Like my redshirt year, I'm like all nervous before this it's an open, my redshirt year. Like no one gives a shit about that. You're never going to remember. Like you think anyone's going to remember if, who knows? Yeah, exactly. I can't even tell you. So if Colin lost in an open his freshman year, like I could never tell you. Like no one cares. So, and I remember
little known fact, he did lose a lot his redshirt year.
Yeah, see, yeah, exactly. Like no one cares though. Now they know he's a 4-time All-American. That's what really matters.
Yeah.
So, I remember being all nervous at like the Cleveland State Open, and I'm about to wrestle someone that probably like wasn't even ranked in high school, and I was number 1, number 2 in the country, and I'm sitting here all nervous, wondering if I'm good enough to wrestle with them. And like, so that's why I'm just saying, don't forget who you are, and like how good you are. So
I love it. All right, so we'll switch gears a little bit now. You people watching at home, you may notice I'm drinking some coffee here. We came out with our own coffee, Max Ever Muscle. We collabed with Caffeine and Kilos. We have some excellent coffee. Now, I got to put you on the spot. I tried to get you to try coffee today, and you weren't even willing to try it. Now, you're a guy, you've had a mustache ever since I've known you. You've probably been shaving since you were 10, and you've never drank coffee before. So let's talk about this.
I have. All right, so I've tried coffee. I don't know that strong coffee taste. I don't like it.
So you tried coffee, or did you try like a Starbucks drink type thing, like a foo coffee?
So I've actually had I've tried real coffee, or like strong, whatever you want to call it. I've tried coffee. I don't like it. I think it's growing on me a little bit though. So, and I think that's because I want to like it. Like I was talking to you earlier, I need to pick me up during the day so I don't have to nap, and so I need coffee or something that'll get me there that isn't super unhealthy, like some energy drinks or anything like that. But so yes, if I go to Starbucks and I want something, then I get like their milkshake drink, which is the double chocolate chip. So
that don't
count.
Yeah,
something that barely tastes like, it literally tastes like a milkshake more than it does a coffee. So that's something I would get.
Well, do you have a coffee pot at home? You probably don't, right? No way to make coffee.
Yeah, we do.
Okay, so I'm going to send you home with a bag of Max Ever Muscle, Caffeine and Kilos coffee.
All right.
It's all organic, single batch origin. It's delicious. I want you to try real coffee, nothing in it.
Cool.
All right. And give it, once that bag runs out, if you're like, okay, I really don't like it, then you don't got to drink it anymore.
All right.
I want you to try it.
All right.
We're getting hooked on caffeine here.
I'll force myself to drink one.
I think you'll enjoy it though.
I think it's growing on me a little bit. Like, I don't know. I'm getting to the point where I can, like, even if I don't really like the coffee aftertaste, I can get to the point like where I can drink one if I really needed to, or like had to force myself to. So I'll get one down for you.
All right. So how much more would you say you focus on nutrition now versus maybe early in your Ohio State career, or even like high school days?
I would say a lot more. I mean,
were you one of those like growing up, like you just ate whatever you wanted type, or?
Yeah, definitely. And then I was one of the guys too that I like managed my weight on how much things would weigh. I knew calories played a factor, obviously, but I don't know. I managed it more on like, oh, this weighs that much, so it's gonna put that much on me or whatever. The first time I actually started like getting a real diet down was, you might remember, I'm sure you remember this because I was asking you a million questions, is when I cut down to 65, and that was a super hard cut, and so I had to, like, kind of how we talked about earlier, is to get the most out of my training, so I wasn't dead all the time.
Broccoli, chicken breast, it's
so
terrible.
I had to put together a good diet so I can have some energy and, for practices every day. So I would text you all the time, like, what should I eat for lunch? What should I eat for breakfast or whatever? So
that's probably, one of the hardest things for me to get through to my high school kids. I can get them to train hard.
Mm-hmm.
I can get them to like run on their own, like on the weekends and stuff. I can't get them to eat right. Like hardly ever. It's just so hard to get through to young kids.
And the thing about that too is, I think if they would just do it like one time, like they would see how much of a difference it makes. Like I know if I don't get like my breakfast or lunch in before practice, then I'm not going to have that great of practice because I'm not going to feel good. Like once you start doing it consistently, you understand how good and how good you feel and how much energy you actually have for practice. So it is crazy.
I think you don't realize how bad you feel eating bad until you eat good consistently.
Exactly. Yeah.
So like, for example, with me, I eat good usually from January till September every year. And then I kind of take the fall off. Like all right, I mentally need a break. I eat whatever I want. I have pizza. I have ice cream.
See, I'm the opposite.
So
I take the summer off.
Right. I always like to stay ripped in the summer. But so right now, like in the fall, because I've been eating this bad, my energy level is so much lower. I can tell I don't recover the same from my workouts. I just feel crappy. So I'm actually like to the point where I've almost kind of like broke myself from eating bad for the last 2 months, and I can't wait till January starts and I can kind of flip the script and get back on my 28-day shred.
Yeah, for sure. It makes you you can't really explain it. You just got to experience it because you just notice like there's a huge difference in how you feel and your energy level and your recovery, things like that.
All right. So now this is the Wrestling Strength Show. We didn't really talk much about strength training, but there is a couple questions I got to ask everybody that comes on. All right. So let's think back. You've obviously wrestled your whole life. Mm-hmm. You and I have trained together for a long time. You also got a great coach and strength coach down at OSU now with Kevin. So you've been fortunate where you've got to do a lot of cool workouts and have a lot of stuff that has helped you physically. What do you think, if you had to think back, whether it's this year, 5 years ago, whether it was when you were in junior high, whatever, if you could think of one thing that's really, from a strength conditioning standpoint, has really helped your wrestling that you feel like is translated well, whether it's a workout or a single exercise, what would it be?
It's a tough question. Spring that on me like that.
Well, yeah, I got to put you on the hot seat at some point, So you think like, what's something like, all right, I know if I do this, it makes a difference. So I want the parents and coaches that are listening, like if there's something training wise that they can pick up from you, Kaleb Romero, what is it?
Well, for me, honestly, I don't know if this will be very helpful going forward, but for me, just getting like before, it's kind of weird. So before matches and stuff, not like 2 days before or whatever, I just like to get a good upper body workout in. I don't know.
No, I know lots of guys that say that same thing because you feel stronger,
you
right?
You do, yeah. So, I like to get a good bench workout in like two days before I actually wrestle because I feel that pump, and then mentally, like going back to the mental things again. Mentally, it makes me feel so much stronger, and then if I go out there on the mat thinking I'm stronger than the guy, and feeling stronger than the guy, then I have so much more control in the match and I wrestle a lot better. So my thing is hopping onto a Coach Myers workout plan and get one of those bench days in 2 days before.
I love that you picked that because it's one of those things that there's probably gonna be some strength coaches that are watching. They're gonna say, well, that doesn't make sense. You bench, I argue with people all the time on Instagram that'll say like, well, wrestlers shouldn't bench press, or why do you guys bench press? It's bad for you, this or that. Number one, it's good for you just from an absolute strength standpoint. Number two, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like if it helps you feel better and stronger mentally, it's going to translate to better performance.
Exactly. So
sometimes I think as coaches, you have to look at not just what do I think is best for the athlete, but what does the athlete think is best for the athlete? Now, maybe in July, it doesn't really matter what the athlete thinks. I need to think long-term periodization, what we're trying to do.
For sure.
But when it's the week of the match, okay, if I can let you do an extra bench workout and that's going to help you feel strong, so mentally you're prepared to go out there, whether it really made a difference strength-wise or not, if you look good, feel good, you're going to wrestle good, right?
Yeah. And I would even go to the extent that even if it isn't the best thing for you, honestly, but mentally you think like, oh, I know this is going to help me, and you're that sure of it. So like, say getting a heavy bench the day before, like physically, like that probably isn't the best thing. If it, I don't know, it might make you sore the next day or something. But going into that, if you think like this is 1,000% going to make me feel stronger and I feel better, I'm going to go out there and compete better, then it's going to be the right thing to do. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
if you believe it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nothing can overpower your mind. So
no.
If you believe it, no matter if it physically, it tears you down a little bit, if you believe it's going to help, then I would say do it because it's going to help.
Now, the worst thing that could happen, though, is if you have a bad bench workout,
true.
you miss your lifts, and then you'll feel like, oh, my God, I'm so weak.
Yeah.
It could backfire. So just make sure you pick your weights appropriately.
True. Yeah, I never go super heavy, but I need a good, and yeah, I don't have to go like super heavy or anything. I just need a good chest pump a couple days before, and then I feel strong and I'm ready to go.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're hearing from an elite level D1 wrestler right here. His secret to success is a chest pump. All right.
You need it. You got to have it.
I love it. All right. So that was good. Now, if you could think of one thing that coaches and parents need to stop doing with their wrestlers, specifically high school and youth kids, what is it that coaches and parents are doing, whether it's a workout, whether it's an exercise, whether it's a mindset thing, what are they doing that's fucking these kids up and they need to quit doing right now?
Yeah, I'd say go with the traditional being, especially in elementary, is just being the crazy parent, like forcing your kids to go whatever to all these wrestling practices or getting super mad at them in practice or doing those type of things that are just going to steer the kid away from wrestling. So, I mean, that's kind of a
so basically competing too much and putting too much pressure on them.
Yeah, basically I would say that hits it. Probably putting too much pressure on the kid when they're young. So. But I told you earlier that I don't care if my kid wrestles competitively or is really good at it or not, but I want to put him in the sport no matter what, and I want to make him wrestle, whether that's one time a week or just I want him to wrestle, period. So
like we talked about earlier, though, it's easier said than done.
Yeah,
you know, when your kid doesn't want to do it, like I'm dealing with it right now. Yeah. I know that my kid likes wrestling, but for this year, for whatever reason, he doesn't want to do it. So yeah. I've been struggling. I'm not going to make him do it, but I know he would benefit from it. But, you know, how do you – I don't know. There's a lot of dynamics to it.
I know there is.
It's easier said than done. It's easy to say now because you don't got kids.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
To say, well, I'm going to make – but what if your kid hates wrestling?
Exactly.
What if he wants to play the piano? You know what I mean? Like, what do you do? I mean, at the end of the day, you have to – when I was going back and forth about it, I was still kind of like on the fence. Like, and I called my dad, and I'm talking to my dad about it. And I said, you know what? I think I'm going to make him go to practices, but he just don't have to compete this year. And he said, don't make him go to practice if he doesn't want to go. He said, number one, he said, I never made you do any sports. I never made you lift weights. He's like, you wanted to lift weights when you were 12, and now look, you've been doing it your whole life. And you do it for a living. He's like, when you were 10, if I'd have made you lift weights, he's like, maybe you wouldn't have wanted to do it anymore. He said, you got to remember it's about what the kid wants, not what you want for them. And then I really thought about it. I'm like, yeah, like, you can't try to live through your kids.
Yeah, for
you
sure.
know? And that's a hard thing for parents to accept.
And that's a fantastic point, but I'll play devil's advocate a little bit here. And my dad was the other way, and my parents, it was both of my parents, but they basically forced me to wrestle and look where it's gotten me. Like, right. I love that they did. At the time, I hated it, and I was mad that they kept pushing me in the sport, but look at all the opportunities they gave me by doing that. So I'm very grateful for both of them. And like, I don't know, we talked about it a little bit. We're probably going to get me and my dad on here, but we have an awesome relationship. Mm-hmm. Like, it didn't hinder that at all. And I love both of my parents, and I'm grateful that they did that because now I have all these opportunities that I have right now.
Well, I'm gonna say the flip side of that is for every Kaleb Romero, there's 1,000 other kids that hate wrestling. They hate their dad. they're strung out on drugs now because they had this bad childhood. You
That's
know,
true.
so I don't know. It's a tough thing. I could probably talk about this all day because it's.
I know, same here. And I think one of the parts with me too that I got lucky on is that my dad or my parents were. I say my dad because he's the one who traveled everywhere with me. My mom did as well, but my dad went to every single practice, every single meet, he didn't miss anything. So that's why I say him a lot. But I think the good thing about in my situation, why we had that good relationship is because he was super hard on me in the wrestling aspect, but like outside of it and everything, like he's an awesome dad. Like, and we had such a good relationship. Yeah, he would make me cry and stuff when I was having a bad practice or things like that. But once we left like the wrestling room or things like that,
it didn't carry over.
It did not carry over. Yeah. So
well, I think you know, you and I have talked about it, but I think I do definitely want to have your dad on because I want to hear, you know, dad to dad. I want to get some conversations out of him, especially with, you know, growing up with it. Obviously, it panned out for you, and you were a 2-sport athlete. You were great in both of them. So I want to hear, you know, some stories from back in the day, and I think it'll be something that people be really interested in hearing because every wrestling dad out there has that fantasy of like, my kid's going to wrestle for Ohio State. My kid's going to be the starting quarterback, you know, whereas he was someone, he had that vision early for you. Like you said, you hated wrestling. He made you do it. And luckily for him, it panned out, you know?
there was waves. So, I mean, when they put me into wrestling, I caught on right away, I was fortunate for me. I caught on right away. So I loved it. But then also I had those years where, I don't know, I would just go through a slump and I wasn't doing very well and I hated it. And I didn't want to go to practice. I would cry if I went to practice, all that. And I would hated it, didn't want to wrestle, but they would be like, no, you're not quitting once you started. I'm like, you put me in this sport. No, so then I would hate it, not want to wrestle. And they'd be like, you can't quit, like whatever. And so then I'd love it again. Like, so it's like, obviously wrestling's a roller coaster. You get the highest of the highs and lowest of the lows, as everyone says. And I'm glad I stuck with it though. But I know what he'll tell you when he gets on here. He'll be like, I mean, I wish I would have done it different. We've had talks before.
Well, you know, Mr. Romero, if you're listening, I can't wait to have you on. So we'll definitely do that, you know, maybe later after the season or towards the end of the season or whatever. Kaleb, for anyone that's watching that may not already follow you or be familiar with you, where can they find you at?
At Kaleb Romero 7 on all socials.
All right. And it probably says Max Effort Muscle Athlete,
That's
Barstool Athlete, you know.
I need to take that off there. The Barstool Athlete.
It's
Everyone
not cool
in the
anymore.
country has it. Yeah.
You were one of the first, though.
I just wanted the merch. The merch is pretty cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, luckily, we know someone else can hook you up with some merch.
Yeah.
All right. Make sure you guys give Kaleb a follow. Make sure you guys check out the I Want Abs contest at maxeffortmuscle.com, and we are out.